When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. It's 11:36. Now, with many foods, we know that it's easy to say whether they're a healthy snack or not. For instance, we could look at a watermelon and say, hey, that's a healthy snack, a little bit of watermelon. While crisps, can you determine, by the way, that the producer of the program, Lola Calder, is from the United Kingdom with the crisps? Chips, right? Are we talking about chips, Lola? Chips. Or crisps. I love when we use the fancy terminology. Are seen as a bad junk food. That's a no-brainer, right? I'd read watermelon better than chips. But some foods are harder to place on the healthy, unhealthy spectrum, and others are incorrectly placed on this spectrum. So let's find out more. Dariush Mozaffarian is the Jean Mayer Professor of Nutrition and Dean for Policy at the Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy at Tufts University. You know what? That title is also a mouthful, like those foods. Dariush, welcome to the show.
A pleasure to have you on and to talk about consumer confusion around food.
Oh, totally. And listen, this is right up my alley because I love my snacking, and I love how sometimes we think we're eating healthy, but we're not, or vice versa. So why don't you start off by explaining the healthy to unhealthy spectrum?
Yeah, well, we have thought about this a lot. I'm a cardiologist and speak to patients, and we do a lot of research in this area. And so we wanted to create a way to profile foods, not only packaged foods that you get in a grocery store, but restaurant meals, even your whole shopping cart, and do it based on the latest science. And so we created a tool, a score called the Food Compass, which rates foods from 1, which is the lowest score, to 100, which is the best score, on their overall healthfulness. And, as you said, as you outlined at the beginning, fruits generally score pretty well, candy scores pretty badly, soda scores pretty badly. That's not a surprise. But there's a lot of surprises, I think, for the average consumer in between. And this is where this kind of profiling system, if it can be applied and put on the package or put at the place of sale or put on an app, could really, I think, help customers a lot.
And can I ask you, does this spectrum, does it ever change? Because I remember it wasn't too long ago where fat was a dirty word. There's fat in that food? Oh, no, you need zero fat, and it's loaded with sugar, by the way. But so does this spectrum change with the times, or is this far more set in stone?
Well, of course, it's going to change. And so we base this now, today, on the best science that we have, and 5 or 10 years from now, it could be updated. But, the science has changed over 30 or 40 years, whereas in the 1990s, right, it was all about a low-fat diet, and we've learned over the last 30 years that that's not true. And so we give positive points to healthy fats. We give positive points to phenolics and carotenoids and bioactives that are in foods like cocoa and tea. And we give negative points not just to things like sugar, which people understand, but also starch. And that's, I think, one of the most unique things about our scoring system is that starchy foods that people usually think of as healthy get pretty low points, and fatty foods that people might think of as not great often get better scores.
Well, why don't you give us some examples here on that end of the ones and the 100s and everything in between? What are some healthy snacks and what are some unhealthy snacks on the spectrum?
Well, at the top of the healthy foods are foods like fruits and vegetables and nuts as well. And nuts is one of those examples where people still to this day are worried about the fat content or the calories or the salt in nuts. But nuts generally, as long as, they're lightly salted and not covered with yogurt and sugar and other things, nuts tend to get very high scores. Fruits get very high scores. Vegetables get very high scores. But also, mussels with tomato-based sauce gets a really good high score. Ceviche gets a perfect score of 100. All the seafood with lime juice.
Wow.
So there's some things that have really high scores. And then, in the middle, you have a lot of variation. And so I think where the Food Compass really gets useful is for, let's say, an egg dish. If you just have a boiled egg, it might get a score of about a 50. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the best thing in the world. It's right in the middle, which is probably pretty fair for a boiled egg. But if you have scrambled eggs with the healthy fat, with tomatoes and vegetables, that score gets up to 70, 75. On the other hand, if you have, a fried egg with unhealthy fats and add some bacon, you might get to the 20s. And so you can really start to see the differences. And one of the examples that got a lot of press was comparing ice cream with chocolate and nuts to a bagel. And ice cream got a better score because it's got some protein, it's got some vitamins, it has the nuts and the chocolate. And a bagel is 100% starch, really essentially glucose. And so, if you're going to have a treat in the evening, your bread is more of something to avoid, and maybe go for the ice cream.
If that ice cream didn't have the nuts in it, would it have fallen down? Is the nuts were really important for that score?
Nuts and the fact that it was chocolate ice cream it had cocoa in it, actually, because of course some chocolate ice cream doesn't. But cocoa is a bean extract. Nuts are healthy foods, and so the ice cream had a score of 35 out of 100. It wasn't a health food, but it was still higher than the bagel, which was around 15.
So the other day, when I had way too many peanut M&Ms, not as terrible as I thought.
Well, I mean, I don't remember the exact score for peanut, covered candies, but the peanuts help. So it's better than the regular ones, but still not a health food. We can't eat health foods every day, so this helps people kind of understand how to move up or down on the scale for any food that they're choosing.
We are having a fascinating discussion with Dariush Mozaffarian, and we're discussing the healthy, unhealthy spectrum when it comes to foods. He's a dean for policy at the Friedman School of Nutrition Science at Tufts University. So Dariush, let's keep it going on here. How does someone like me or our listeners figure out, where does something fall on the scale?
Well, this is science in progress, and so we've published our paper showing that this system works quite well. We scored almost 10,000 products across the United States, and now we're working on expanding that to more products. We also have a new analysis that we hope will be published soon, showing that the people who eat foods that are higher in Food Compass scores have better health. They have lower risk of poor health outcomes like heart attacks, and they have better risk factors, and they actually live longer. They have less mortality. So that's another good sign that the system is working. I think what needs to happen next is, once in the next year or two, is to start to make applications that are easy to use for the consumer. And so whether that's an app that can be scanned, whether it's a front-to-pack label that a company decides to voluntarily put on, or a retailer could put on the shelf, this could be used. And that's happening. So Walmart has its own system called Great For You. Kroger in the U.S. has its own system called Opt Up. Hannaford's has the Guiding Stars. In Europe, there's actually a lot of front-to-pack nutrient profiling systems like this. In Canada and the U.S., we're still behind Europe, but consumers are going to be seeing these kinds of systems more and more. And we hope this system will be one that restaurants and food manufacturers and retailers will pick up and start to use.
I know we've got also food pyramids, right? Governments say, here's the food pyramid, and what's at the top and what's at the bottom. Do you think this healthy, unhealthy spectrum is far more useful than a food pyramid?
Well, the food pyramid, which is long gone in the U.S. and has now been replaced with the healthy plate, is pretty basic, right? It says eat fruits and vegetables, have whole grains, have a quarter of your plate be fish or lean meats. That doesn't help when you're looking to choose between energy bars, or when you're looking to choose between breakfast cereals, or you're trying to decide, is a fruit with a little bit of sugar in the syrup that much worse for me than the fruit without, right? So I think it doesn't really replace those things. They're just different. The government guidelines are very big and broad. This is like, at the point of sale, trying to make those decisions, trying to help people make healthier choices. Is
there a website where I could just go and pop in the food item and find out where it is on that scale from 1 to 100, or is that something you're thinking about?
Not yet, but we hope to get there. Our website, if you just look up Tufts and Food Compass, that's our website about the scoring system. And again, this is brand new science, and so we're hoping to get it to where it can be applicable and helpful to people in their everyday lives.
Oh, this is wonderful. I've done just that. As you were speaking there, I went to the search box and I typed in Tufts and Food Compass, and I found it right away. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us. This is a great discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great to talk.
That is Dariush Mozaffarian, the Gene Mayer Professor of Nutrition over at Tufts University.